And it's one of the things I hear pretty often about people who are nervous about building community anywhere other than social media. They're like, well, do they really get engagement? And are people really actually involved? And I would say this community definitely stands out as one, or not like, this community is definitely proof that not only can it happen, it's actually that activity is very conducive to what they're building here in this space.
Welcome to Community Dissection, where we dissect online communities to give you an inside look at community design, architecture, and evolution. Let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Community Dissection. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. I invite you to click subscribe on the channel and check out other videos in the podcast and playlist. My name is Bri Leever, and I am the founder and community strategist over at Ember. And this is actually our 23rd episode of Community Dissection, and this marks the start of what I'm calling season 2. So season 1, we really focused on big brand communities, customer communities. It was a lot of fun. We ripped a lot of them to shreds. We found a lot that we really loved. Go check out those episodes. But in this new season, we're going to be focusing on membership communities and more paid communities. So we have a wide range of communities slotted and coming up, but today we're going to be focusing on a community called Ness Labs, and I am joined by Teresa, Peluso. Terry, you want to say hi?
Hello, how are you all? Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And remind us where you're joining from.
Oh, I'm joining from Santa Cruz, California.
That's right, wonderful. Yes. And what do you do? What's your role right now?
Well, right now I am freelancing, doing community consulting strategy work, as well as some marketing on the side. So
awesome. Great. Well, I feel like people will get a great taste for both you and I, how we look at community and some of the consulting work we do. Okay, before I go any farther, I just want to show you the community. So here is the Ness Labs community. So while I land here on the homepage, I think this community is really beautiful. It was one of the earliest, quote, successful communities in Circle. And so I joined this community actually years ago because I was right when I had learned about Circle, I wanted to see good case studies of, communities that were using this platform in a way that monetized their audience and their content, but also created a community experience around their content. And Ness Labs, and specifically Anne-Laure Lecomte, the founder, does a phenomenal job of that. So real quick, I'm going to back up to what Ness Labs is. So they started as a newsletter, especially really, I think they kicked off during the pandemic. That's when the newsletter really took off. And they were looking for a way to, in addition to all the people replying back to the newsletter, they wanted a way to connect those people together. So I'm trying to remember their tagline that I saw when I first joined. It was something for curious minds. Do they still have that? Become more creative and more productive with science-based strategies and a supportive learning community. So this is their newsletter. Then let's click over to membership. So if you know about Ness Labs, it's very easy to find their platform. I'm curious, I heard about it through the Circle community. I'm curious how most people find out about Ness Labs.
Well, I have not heard of it. So there you go.
No, and I think it's it is a fairly large community, but I think it's also very niche in the science, psychology, self-helpy world. Okay. In our community, online courses, meetups and workshops, mind match, and exclusive discounts. All right. So that gives us an overview of what we're going to see here next in the community, but I want to dig into the community and the design that we see here. So Terry, feel free to just interrupt me if you're ever click on that. I want to dig a little deeper into that. We're going to be exploring this together, but some of this is going to be me explaining the platform itself and Circle and their layout. But a lot of this, I really want to try to focus more in on how Ness Labs has used Circle for their community experience rather than focusing on the features of the platform.
Right.
With that being said, I like this little intro. This is your learning community. Scroll down to discover new topics and start a post yourself about creativity or mindful productivity. It's the best way to learn and make new friends in the community. So right off the bat, this is a fully private community. To the best of my knowledge, I don't believe any of these spaces are public facing, which is, I personally love the clarity in that design choice and that, in that like community model where it's just exclusively paid. You're not trying in Circle. I've noticed like communities that have some public spaces and some private spaces. It's really difficult to speak to those two different targets in this one home landing page. So I love the clarity of just like, this is the community, you've all paid for it. Let's dig in. So what is interesting here is that they go right into the home feed. So it's a combination of all of the posts from members regarding spaces that I belong to in the community. And something that I noticed right away is that I could use a little bit more from the onboarding experience. If I'm coming in for the first time, maybe having a little bit more here in this introduction post that says hey, here's how you get started. First, head on over here and introduce yourself, which you notice pretty quickly. Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
But this isn't your first time logging in though, right?
This isn't, but it will. If I was logging in for the first time, it would still show this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sure.
This homepage doesn't, it's not dynamic. It doesn't change based on how many, my member profile. But what I do love about this homepage is that it also shows you a snippet of upcoming events right away. Those can get, I think just having events in the left-hand toolbar, they can get buried pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think the events, especially if you've got a lot going on as well, is a very natural way to draw people in and explore that way. I almost think that's just as critical as a solid homepage, that if you have a solid way of getting into the events pretty quickly, because it's really interesting. They're interesting topics.
Yeah. And, a great event lineup with lots of people RSVPing tells me right away, that this is a very active community. And it's one of the things I hear pretty often about people who are nervous about building community anywhere other than social media. They're like, well, do they really get engagement? And are people really actually involved? And I would say this community definitely stands out as one, or not this community is definitely proof that not only can it happen, it's actually that activity is very conducive to what they're building here in this space.
Yes. Yeah. They really focus on the connections that are getting made and really bring it to the forefront, which is not every community can do that because they're not maybe events driven as much or even as connection driven. It's more knowledge, it's more of that kind of thing, but it's very clear how the energy of this community, what's coming through.
Well, and what has always really struck me about this community is how member-led it is. So I remember posting, I had read Brene Brown's new Atlas of the Mind, Atlas of the Heart. And I commented, I made a post and I was like, either I made it or somebody else made it. And I commented, but there was this whole thread about Atlas of the Heart. And we were like, oh my gosh, we should do a book club. And there were 24 comments on it. And it was buried here somewhere in Book Lovers. That's where it was. Oh, I guess Book Lovers is archived. So sad. Anyways, it was buried here in Book Lovers, 26 comments. And we finally were like, okay, let's just put together an event. We'll host it here in Ness Labs. The Ness Labs team had nothing to do with it, but the people who took it and ran with it, created this full parameters and social contract for how we will meet together. And it was so, and resources and guides. It was so robust and it was all member led. And I was super impressed that was happening. It's easy to think that happens just well, you just got lucky and that just happened organically. But I want to dig into what about their community design is creating those results, because it is very intentional. It's not just spontaneous combustion. So
Mhm.
Wait, let me go back to here because that's what made me think of this was I'm wondering if this person, Faye, is facilitator for the quiet writing work sessions. I'm wondering if they are like employed by Ness Labs, if they're like a leader in the community, or like who they are.
Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder if you go through the post comments and spaces, like if there is uh, this is where I would probably look them up on LinkedIn.
Right. I'm curious. I'm really curious. So at first glance, they don't appear to be someone who is like employed by Ness Labs.
Yeah. No, it definitely doesn't look like that.
But they certainly appear to have a leadership role in the community where they are the steward of these writing workshops. So whether they
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it's a good point. Just to riff off of that, like usually, there's some indicators that they have some place in the community, like even a contributor, or like, or even if that's not a leadership role, it's still a role.
Yes.
And you don't really see that, doesn't really come through. And maybe that's by design, but I'm not sure.
That's a really great call out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I prefer to have like, if there was like an onboarding space with like 3 cards, one of those cards. So cards, for those of you who aren't familiar with Circle, look like this. So if we had like start here and there was a card that said like meet our like team, and then it was people who like are formally employed by Ness Labs, and then like our leaders or our contributors or our moderators. And Circle does have the ability to like tag people. It just helps orient yourself. Like after clicking around, you start to get a sense for like who's really involved and kind of who has authority in the space. But offering a little bit more transparency, I think could, especially as the community continues to grow, could be a benefit.
Well, it's been around for a while. I'm surprised. Maybe they did have it, and maybe it disappeared.
Yes.
It's one of those things that you don't know what goes on behind the scenes and why they make certain decisions. But yeah, agreed. I would appreciate it.
Awesome. Let's move into one of our channels here, just to see what types of content is happening. Like, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at this. Like, someone's asking a question, 26 people have comments. I'm just pretty shocked, honestly, by like the level of engagement. So let's just dig in a little bit here. So this is a technique for productivity, very on brand for this community. I mean,
so going on, so much.
So many different people like jumping in here. Really, like, I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
And there's even more. Okay, let's go back and just look at, so I know, I'm curious.
This is where search comes really useful, right? Because it is mature and there are going to be obviously many comments, conversations, etc. So this is where I would probably get overwhelmed.
Okay, yeah. Oh, tell me more.
I mean, I think it depends on, if I went to a community like this, these are topics I could definitely get jazzed about, but I also find that this whole space of mindfulness, mental health, there's a lot going on there, psychology. I would probably rely on search if I was more intentional about what I was looking for. So I would probably, mindful productivity, that's pretty straightforward, but what does creativity mean? Like, it'd have to be really intentional.
Yeah.
To really get to some choice things that I'm looking for. But it's still I'm surprised they don't have more channels actually, but
I think they've pruned a lot. I think so when I first joined, it was pretty simple. Then it got absolutely chaotic. And now they've really scaled it back. And I'm pretty impressed and thankful for that. Because I do think less is more when it comes to channels. Like I'd rather have few channels like packed in with questions and comments
absolutely
than have like a million different channels here.
Yeah.
And you're right. The search bar is definitely essential once communities hit a certain tipping point where it's like not helpful to keep asking the same question over and over again.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think that's the thing. Yeah.
And I think, the general flow of conversation is by nature quite overwhelming. If it's not overwhelming, it's a ghost town, And so it's this delicate balance, I think, because, and that's where it's important in my professional opinion, to consider not just conversation as your primary pillar of your community design, but also content and events. And I think content, especially like learning content, like a get started series, and that's what I'm like excited to click into next year is like, okay, so here we have a mindful productivity masterclass. And I'm like, so, cause I'm kind of like you, like, okay, I might be a little overwhelmed with like, am I in the right place? Am I asking the right questions? Or like, it might just overwhelm me to like read other people's questions. So like, how can I just like get like dip my toes, get acclimated a little bit to what's happening here? And I'm curious about this format because, okay, this was in 2022. So they clearly chose, so Circle now has a courses feature, but prior to that feature, a lot of communities like Ness Labs would have courses, but they would use the card style format to facilitate those courses. And so I'm curious, it doesn't look like they've migrated over to the courses format. They just host their courses in this card style format. So I'm a little bit curious, and it looks like this was more cohort based, like in like time based, but you can still access it even if you came into the community later. But I like this, how to make the most of the learning community. I love that. So
it's interesting how they call it a class. That's weird. It seems like it's about the community itself, right? It's the typical
onboarding.
So here's your onboarding.
Yes, but
wasn't clear though. Wasn't clear.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So my guess is what happened is that they did this like really big campaign for this mindful productivity masterclass, and they brought in a big group of people at the same time and like walked them through this process. But as someone, if someone's just joining independently or like without joining because of this masterclass, I think that start here post would be so helpful to have just like moved over here into like a get started section, for example.
Maybe it's in help and support, or maybe it's in library. I don't know.
Yep. That can be great. Okay, interesting. So then we link to the lessons, a self-paced activity and an assignment. So I like this format. I honestly, I think the design is like really sleek. It's really simple. As like someone who has been a part of the community, I'm a little bit like biased and I like already have some of that understanding, but are there other areas you want me to like click around to, or how do you feel on a scale of 1 to shockingly overwhelmed?
Well, I think like to your point, I'm new to it, but I don't know, maybe it's in the getting started or now I know the mindful productivity masterclass, but what are your projects? Like, is that a term? Is that a term on the left? Is that what you clicked on, your project?
Oh, interesting. Let's look.
Is this something that you've collected or participated in or favorited in some way?
One space collection of books. I don't know what this is.
I don't know.
Yeah, that.
Or is it projects that are going on, like people are working on, not just your projects, it's like projects that the members are working on or something like that. I don't know.
Got it. They're posting about their projects that they're working on.
Which is great. I don't know if your projects says that to me, but I like the space for it. I like the idea of, what are you working on?
Yes. Yeah.
To get people, and I think that's actually very, very cool. And I would probably rename it or do something else. Hopefully it is in the productivity masterclass, to share your projects, because remember how it's like introduce yourself, that's always there. So if I'm confused about a community, about like who's here, that's where I go, like,
yes.
If I don't know, if I can't tell, like from a profile of an interesting post that person, like what this is about, like this is where I go.
Yes, totally. It's the introduction space is always so helpful for that. Like if you're asking the question, like, am I in the right place coming in here and reading a couple of profiles? You'll be like, oh, yep, I am asking the same questions, or like, oh, nope, I don't understand half of the words you're saying.
Well, I've literally joined a community thinking that it was something that it could be for me. And then I go in there and I see all the introductions, and I shared none of the background that were, it was a weird alienating thing. To the point where I was like, how do I not become part of this community? I think I'm in the wrong place.
Yeah. Yes.
And I tried, and they came back to me as like, you can please stay, please,
Actually,
like,
you can't ever leave.
Actually, you can't leave, or they'll, if I really pushed it, I'm sure, but I was like, I don't know if I could even contribute here. I don't do this type of work. This is not even in my part of any remit I've had. So,
which I
anyway,
think
it was really interesting.
In that scenario, like good community design is like, oh, sorry, you came to the wrong place. Like, no problem. Here's the exit. We love you. We support you. We wish you best on your journey. But like when you clearly identified, like, this is no longer a fit for me, like, you're not going to convince me or like change me enough to make it a good fit. Like, just let me go. Don't try to turn me from a lurker into an active member. Just let me go. And
I can guarantee you I will be a lurker, or I will not, because I'm either too intimidated by the content, because I don't have any background. You've really gotta want to be there.
It serves no one, in my opinion. I think that, like, from the beginning, making it really clear, like, who this is for. And if the reason that you felt like so uncomfortable in that experience is also because like of a lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion, like being at play in the community, like that's something that they seriously have to assess. Like, I'm not saying that like just because someone feels like they don't belong in your community, it doesn't mean you're doing everything right, and that's fine. You can just let them go. Yeah. But you also like don't force people to be there who don't want to be there. They're not in your target.
Yeah, it was very weird, and anyway, that is an experience that could happen if you're looking at the introduce yourself and you're like, I can't relate to any of these people. I mean, I admire them, but I don't think that I don't know what I would contribute or want to contribute. I wouldn't contribute in this way.
Well, so here's what's interesting. When I scroll down, I'm just looking at the side, like, okay, we have some we have all these people have joined within the last 3 days or 3 days ago. And they're all getting like 1 to 10 comments. Like, that's pretty phenomenal for introductions. Pretty. And I'm like, okay, so how are these like, I just want to click in here really quick, and we're going to hide all this information, but.
Oh, there's a community
manager, founder. We had another member, another student. I'm just curious. I don't think it's bad if it's just a community manager who is welcoming people, but I'm always just curious what that activity is like.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, short.
Let's see. I hope you're exploring. What I appreciate too is community manager or otherwise members saying, oh, your background looks like, I don't know, some natural networking or connecting with people.
Yes, that's actually, it's a huge like right now in most platforms manual step to
Very manual.
kind of sort members and connect them and create those bridges. But it's one of the most impactful experiences that I have had in joining communities and being able to connect with people right off the bat. So yeah, it looks like they might not be doing, and that intro is like super short. So I wonder if like with more information given, if maybe the community manager is connecting more members to them. Let's look at this one.
Oh yeah, I mean, let's see.
Okay. Oh, people asking about community. Come on over, check out our community dissection series.
That's really funny. You
Yeah,
need to be in there.
It does appear to be a little bit more scripted and might even be an automation than like a personal connection like to other people, but still not like I'd rather have you at least comment on someone's.
Cool idea for the online book club. There was a book club. I don't know.
Oh, so that's their idea. That's what they're doing.
Their idea.
It's an online book club.
But okay. Point to, hey, look, there was a book club. I don't know. There was a book club here.
Yeah, I know. Running book clubs. Interesting. Well, there was book lovers, but yeah, I'm curious what happened to that and how, if it maybe folded.
Well, to your point though, if there's a book, if it's no longer there, but you want to maintain like the goodness that's there, is there, when you go in there, there should be something like, say, this is no longer active, but but there's a lot of good information, insight here. Welcome to the archive of the I don't know, something like that.
Yes.
It just seems like it's just hanging out there.
Yes, totally. And I'm trying to click. Weird. Oh no, my screen's like a little frozen. Hold on, because I want to search for book club and see what pops up. And there's also like, I've seen a couple different posts about like meetups. So I just want to, meetups would maybe be one like design wise that I would segment out, or like in-person gatherings, or like somebody from your book club. Okay, interesting. Okay, this is in Book Lovers. But yeah, I think they just sort of archived all of this, which I think these archive spaces I'm a part of because
it is archive. I'm sorry. It's under
no. Well, I was a part of them back when they were not archived. So I think that they have just moved in there, and I don't think new members would be able to see all of this content.
I see. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
I think
that's good to know. That's good to know.
But yeah, I mean, they could update if I was coming back in, if they wanted to like, kind of like dot the I's and the T and cross the T's, they could update this like pinned post and just say, hey, Book Lovers has been archived, but like, if you're interested in recommending books, here's where to go now. Something like that could also work.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Right, because it's not just new users, it's for people that were not part of it. It's like yourself, people that were part of it. It's an archive, but now where do I go? Like I've got books,
Exactly.
Something to think about.
Yeah.
What I don't understand, or what I would like you to click through so I can understand, the very left-hand side, what these icons mean. Like
these ones. These are all of my circle communities.
Oh.
So yeah, ignore these. We're in Ness Labs right now, but when you're a part of other communities in Circle, then that's how it shows up. It's a little bit like Slack.
Yeah, totally. Okay, didn't know.
Great question. Yeah, well, I feel like that's a great place to kind of wrap things up. So I'm going to stop sharing. Overall, Terry, do you have like one thing you loved about the community, one thing you would change if you had to kind of summarize it?
I love the density and the richness of it. And I love the topics of it. I mean, I think that it's, I know it was probably born in the pandemic, so it's nice to see it carry on, and like people are really excited about these topics, and I think that's what I love about it. And it looks good and it's fairly intuitive, really. To your point, onboarding could be more clear, like where to start, or there's just it just seems like there's a lot of potential there to really draw out all that goodness. And I know it's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, but that's the only thing I would say is like, is there any way to kind of say, here's specially curated, and instead of like everything getting an equal place at the table, I think the curated content is very useful. And if it's built on past posts, that makes it even more sticky. So, it would be cool to see that more up leveled.
Yeah, some of that segmentation is definitely, there are definitely limitations within Circle around like being able to segment that content. Like you can segment your members into different tags and have them like join, smaller subset of groups, but that segmentation should simplify the experience. And what I've found with platforms like Circle at the current stage is that segmenting only like adds a layer of complexity and chaos. So I'm excited to see how the technology continues to evolve, because I agree, like as the community grows, you have to introduce segmentation to help simplify. But I've seen usually the segmentation only creates more.
I always appreciate like a meaty topic and then related posts. Like I
that's
and it's built on some past posts. Like
that's pathways, which is hard to do when it's a flow of conversation. When you're the one generating all the content, it's really easy to create that web. You have to be pretty intentional if you're gonna help create that flow within like an ever flowing conversation of people and contributors. It's a really great point. I love that point.
It's hard to capture the magic of that flow. It is.
But I love to, and you touched on this, like, I think that like similar to really thriving communities that come out of a product centric company, I think Ness Labs had really phenomenal content that was I wouldn't say dragging people in. They're not that attracting people in. And I think what can happen in that scenario is that the community actually remains really content focused. Like they just become like essentially a gathered audience, and they just but they like consume content together. And I think what really sets the Ness Labs community apart is that they really did intentionally cross that bridge where they have phenomenal content coming out, but they have leveraged the power of the connections within the community. And it's not just Ness Labs coming and presenting all of this to an audience. It is a community of people who are contributing, who are asking questions, who are leading events. And that's it's a total mind shift from feeding an audience to fostering a community. Ooh, somebody should pen that. Moving from feeding an audience to fostering a community. It's a significant shift. And I think that if you want a model of how to do it well, I think this is a really fabulous example. So
a newsletter to a community. Usually it's like an events to a community. And that to me is harder because it's offline or in person to online. And it's not going to always be the same people that show up, or if they show up at all. But this is smart newsletter to a community. I think it's a really good one.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. And anyone who's watching this, if you're a Nesser and you're watching this, thank you for your contributions to the Ness Labs community. We think this is an amazing space, and it's teaching people so many great skills and giving them a place to grow and to learn alongside of others. So thank you for your contributions. If you're a part of the Ness Labs team, thank you for allowing us to humbly and curiously dissect your community. We as community builders know just how difficult it is to foster and grow communities. So we just appreciate everything that you're doing and hope that you take this community dissection with the spirit of curiosity and generosity that it is intended. But overall, I'm a huge fan of this community. I think they stand as a fabulous example, not only for how to use the Circle platform, but also how to take that content and transition it, how to go from feeding an audience to fostering a community.
That's the name. That's the name of this one. That's the name of this episode.
I love it. I love it. It's too good.
It's too good.
Awesome. Well, Terry, lovely to have you on here. Yes. Thank you for joining as a guest and look forward to having you on another episode.
All right. Take care. Thank you.